Hello, and welcome to this Friendly Friday. And today we are not joined by like-minded entrepreneurs due to life happening. And that's okay because we always need to show up under any circumstances that we are presented. We have to always be ready to continually show up to build our authority online. So I thought what I would do today, as it has been asked before, am I ever going to interview myself? Or can someone interview me? So probably a better scenario would have been somebody to interview me, but rightfully so, I'm going to interview myself, which I think is something unique and definitely will still add some value to the session today. And hopefully as of next week, we'll continue as usual. But in the same breath, perhaps I'll start a new trend, and every other week I will interview myself and be the interviewer and interviewee. So let's start from the very top. For those of you watching or watching the replay that may not know me very well, or perhaps haven't heard too much about my background, I won't go too much into my bio, but I'll kick off with my first question, which really kind of always starts off with how did my business come to life as an entrepreneur? You know, I know it's always a struggling question, as we wonder, you know, is it possible that my entrepreneurial dream will come true, and will my business succeed? So my short story is, after spending about 15 years in corporate marketing, absolutely loved it, knew there was always a better place to be, but just personally couldn't take that jump. And so fortunately, about 5 years ago, to be exact, I was actually retrenched from my previous corporate position and had the opportunity to start my own thing, which at the time seemed like the worst thing that could possibly happen to me. And I was obviously in a position of doubt, and what am I going to do? And nobody really wanted to hire me. And so I thought, well, it's now or never. And I was very fortunate that a previous client of one of the companies I'd worked with had approached me to say, could I help them? And so I thought, well, this is it. It's now or never. And so it happened, right? And it was just, in the moment, I thought it's probably the worst thing, but in hindsight, it was definitely the best thing. So it's that big stance of taking that giant leap of faith and starting within, because it's always that little voice that says, are you able? Are you capable? Can you succeed? And obviously, a few of us are also afraid of success. You know, how do we handle it? And what do we do? Never mind failure, being afraid of failure. So my first little organization was born. Needless to say, I've had a few more along the way. I guess once you start, you can't stop. But yes, the focus has always been marketing for me. And through the COVID kind of time, everyone was kind of focused on being online. I took a stance and went online and started doing a few marketing specific presentations for my community. And so the Marketing Lifeline was born in February 2021, which is essentially just over a year ago. So still also quite a new business, but my intention is to help not only struggling, but entrepreneurs, business owners, through the process of marketing, to help them establish a differentiator, to also show up online and not just be seen among the masses. So that's where I am at the moment, offering a whole lot of different online courses. But that's enough about me. The reason for my Friendly Friday is totally to empower entrepreneurs, as I do, as my strapline kind of says, educate, empower, and elevate. And that's ultimately what Friendly Fridays is about. It's just showing you the journey that other entrepreneurs have traveled. They've succeeded, they've failed, they succeeded, they failed, and they continue to succeed and fail, but never give up. And also just sharing insights that can help you in your business, because business is a holistic approach, and it's not just about marketing. As much as I'm very passionate about marketing and I love marketing, and I believe it ultimately can set you apart versus what your business has to offer, because essentially everyone can do what you do. But it's taking the time to establish your differentiator and how you're going to put yourself out there. So very fair point. I do actually interview quite a few marketing people on the show as well. It's all about collaboration, but at the end of the day, we are here to help each other. So on to my first questions. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about Facebook, just because it's a relevant topic. It came up this week in a conversation with a client, and I thought maybe that's a good topic on the spur of the moment to talk about. And so let's talk a little bit about what are my thoughts about Facebook. So, I love Facebook. I mean, Facebook keeps me connected with the world. Having family living overseas, I totally love it. It's my kind of up-to-date daily fix, more than once a day probably. But the reality is Facebook is a great platform, and it's grown in leaps and bounds. And I think the opportunities that are available on Facebook, just looking at your personal page or business page versus groups or forums that you can create and or join, the likes of Marketplace where you can have if you've got physical products to sell, to the kind of back end side where you can run campaigns, be very specific, the different types of campaigns, even the different types of posts. It's such a versatile platform, and it is actually a good platform to be on. And I think most people that I generally interact with are on Facebook, maybe not so much on the other platforms, but definitely on Facebook. So yes, what are my thoughts about Facebook? I absolutely do like it. Is it for your business? I guess is one of the kind of following on questions that we can cover. But I guess Facebook is not for everyone, meaning every business. So obviously, as I would in my strategic approach, it's always understanding who your customer is, and then understanding where they are absorbing and getting information. And quite often people would say, even if you are a business to business kind of business, that you're kind of really targeting buyers within an organization, are they on Facebook? And often people would be like, absolutely, because that's where they spend their time over weekends and after hours. And absolutely, Facebook for me is a presentation of entertainment, definitely a place to get content, but also at the same time, it is very much brand awareness. So that's why I do believe Facebook is a platform, if that's where you feel your audience may be, even if it is an entertainment factor, but then also be kind of aware of the type of content that we're going to put on. So let's go into my next question. So what are my thoughts around Facebook? Absolutely love the platform. If it's relevant to your business and your audience is sitting there. But how can we best utilize it? How can we best utilize Facebook? So often clients would say to me, I'm just on Facebook. So that is their marketing tool. So I guess a couple of questions that come to mind is fine, are you getting leads from Facebook? How is Facebook servicing your business? Are you getting, the kind of referrals through Facebook? Is it working for your business? Or is it just a brand building exercise? So I think that's another prevalent question to ask yourself. A question two is what is your objective with Facebook? But how to utilize Facebook to its maximum is, I always say, use it alongside some other platforms. So whether we call it a three-spoke approach as a minimum, I tend to like the numbers 3, 6, and 10s. But if it's kind of a three-spoke approach, I personally feel if you're just showing up on Facebook, to me, it's almost like not enough. I know it sounds terrible, but kind of, I guess it's that analogy of don't put all your eggs in one basket. And for me, just showing up on Facebook is putting all your eggs in one basket. So quick example is, fine, customer tells me only on Facebook, doesn't really check the insights, neither posts 3 to 4 times a week, has engagement on their posts, but have no insights as to, is the engagement improving or not. But alongside that, okay, so where are the people being positioned from Facebook? Where are people being asked to go to? What is your kind of call to action from Facebook? And then it kind of seems to be, that's where the kind of gray area starts. And it's like, well, they're on Facebook, so they're getting to see us and they are getting to hear about our service offerings, and it's great and fantastic, bullet ticked, and that's your kind of awareness factor. But the point being is, if we want to talk about the customer journey, okay, big word, but we've got to talk about the customer journey. We've got to think about the different touch points on that journey. Okay, so Facebook tick number one, yes, possibly one, scrolling along through their feed on Facebook, seeing your brand, stopping, participating, perhaps liking it, maybe not sharing it, and moving along. The objective there is what we would potentially call as like a lost lead. We would want someone, or we would want to take that specific person to the next step, to the next step, to the next step. So if you can kind of like picture a path along with a whole lot of different stepping stones, we want to move them from stepping stone 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And Facebook in isolation, for me, kind of misses that. It doesn't allow us to take them from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. Maybe Facebook was step 2, fantastic. We can chat about where they're coming from. But if your Facebook is your only place where you are showing up, I feel that we may be missing options to lead people to somewhere else. So, for example, utilizing Facebook is, and this is not even talking about doing campaigns, this is just basic posting, which probably 80% of us do, is always lead them to the next stepping stone. So don't just leave it up to the customer to decide, oh, I think I should contact them, or oh, I think I should like and move on. Always leave some type of call to action or have an intention with your posts on Facebook. I kind of say like 50-50, positioning and promoting. We don't always be promoting, because that's another conversation for another day, is what type of content to be putting on Facebook. But the point being is, lead them to the next point, lead them to the next step, lead them through the journey. So typically giving them access to a download that you may have for them, or a link to a chat room or a group, or a link to get more, to find out more. And that's the other thing, is even if it is your website, which it could well be, because that could be your second spoke, is great. But how many Facebook pages are not aligned to their websites? So as long as you are 100% sure that your website is aligned to your Facebook messaging and intention, then it's okay. But just to take them typically from a Facebook post to your website could be quite alarming as well, for the person that's on this journey, because quite often the post felt a bit different, or the logo was slightly positioned differently, and so they really feel like they've gone from one country to the next, and they're really not comfortable. So that's why we kind of then say, maybe implement a bit of a landing page, okay? So that could be either spoke. Okay, so all I'm saying is Facebook in absolute isolation is, no, that's not for me. I feel the best way to utilize Facebook is to use other spokes, other channels, other points or touch points, and make sure they're all aligned. So it's almost like as if you're going from stepping stone 1, flow into stepping stone 2, you flow into stepping stone 3. And hopefully by stepping stone 3, you're actually going to get some form of either an email address or perhaps a direct contact from the prospect customer. So I think that's the intention with Facebook, is just because you're showing up on a regular basis and you tick in the box because you showed up 3 to 4 times a week and you got some engagement, that for me is not good enough anymore. Facebook needs to be driving people to the next step, and or coming from somewhere to Facebook to the next step. Okay, so it needs to be interrelated. That's my opinion on utilizing it to the best. Okay, Megan, you have 20 minutes, so don't get too involved, because generally I do love to talk a lot more than I should. So going on to my top tips then for Facebook. So I've quickly touched on my thoughts about Facebook, love it, love the different things about it, but how can we best use Facebook, okay? And then my fourth question is my top 3 tips for Facebook. So I think following on from what I've said, is look at the options that Facebook has to offer. Okay, don't always just post. You know, there are other options. I think I'm going to have more than 3 tips at this stage. But number one, and primarily, is just ensure that your cover photo looks beautiful and professional. Like, let's just start at the basics. How many Facebook pages I've been on, and like just the general branding is like a bit off-putting. So if you want to be on Facebook and consistently showing up to build your authority, just make sure that your kind of general branding is aligned and your logo is well sized and everything is consistent. Okay, that's just a tip for you to have for the bag. But yeah, key tips for Facebook is utilize Facebook. Utilize the benefits that it gives you. Okay, so number one, when you're posting, I mean, utilize the point that you can have videos, you know, use different types of content. Don't always just use static imagery. Use the carousels. Be smart about your posting. So let's not even talk about the back end side, just general posting for people with maybe a 1 out of 5 Facebook authority and sense of how to use it is just use content creatively. Okay, don't always use a graphic content. Mix it up. Share articles, use video, use carousels, use lives. I love lives. Don't do them so much anymore on Facebook, but use the tools you have to use. So change it up. Okay, so that's definitely tip number one. Tip number two for me is very much about the type of content you do share. Is, again, just with any other content, I would recommend is be aware of your audience and what it is that they want to hear. Okay, so it's not about telling everyone how great you are and what products and services you have to offer, but rather tapping into the mind of the prospect customer that you're wanting to talk to and rather get their attention. I read a little line this morning, is stop chasing clients and rather attract clients. And it's exactly that. It's exactly going out with content that is relevant to your specific target market. Doesn't matter, even though Facebook seems like a wealth of information and perhaps an overload at 90% of the time, isn't it even more so reason to make you think, oh shucks, I need to stand out from these masses? So by creating relevant content to a very specific market is probably I wouldn't even say biggest tip, but probably one of the top tips of Facebook is just be cognizant about the type of content you're putting out there, because it's very easy to get blindsided by all the other nonsense that you see. So be specific to your market. And again, what is your intention with your posts? Have some type of intention and or plan, which goes on to my next tip is consistency. Okay, so I would say, you know, have a plan for 3 to 6 months at a minimum. You know, I look at my content 3 to 6 months in advance, but as a minimum 3 months in advance, just to see what your plan is in terms of content and showing up. And why I say that is because your consistency on Facebook is key. You know, consistency is key. So you want to be able to continually show up consistently, whether you show up on the same days, like I try and show up on the same days every time. That's okay. Like, that's not the most important thing. Sometimes it's a good thing because people start building the expectation, especially if you're on groups and stuff. But very, very importantly is have a plan. So you can also then in advance plan your content, but then you can also show up consistently. So it's not kind of, okay, got a great month of being online on Facebook and then kind of disappearing again, and then showing up on Facebook and then disappearing. And then just to like add it in, when you do post, do not boost your posts ever. Like, I'm so anti-boosting. If you really want to take the time and get the right market, go into your business manager or get someone to help you to set up a campaign and do very specific targeting. That's the great thing about Facebook. Back in the day when it was mass media, we had to like suck it out, like LSMs, demos, areas. Like, we have the opportunity now on Facebook to actually go in and select areas. and people that are looking for. Okay, so hence you might be seeing relevant topics or content coming your way because they have identified you as a mother. So you continually see content that's relevant. So those are just some tips. Probably could go on for quite a bit more, but to keep this to the point as I like to do. In closing, my last question is the opinion question. And my opinion question today is, which platform is the best platform? I personally don't have favorite platforms. I'm just not a big fan of TikTok personally in my own business, but it's mind-blowing for the younger generation. There is I think a 33% of the older generation on TikTok. So not to say you can't be there. It's just not somewhere I've kind of ventured. At the moment, LinkedIn is my favorite platform. I think also because I work with a lot of business to business owners, and it's just a place for me to position my personal brand, which is very important to me in my business. It's an opportunity for me to connect with other professionals, which I love. And again, also very strategically, with the capability of searching for specific job titles, regions, industries. So, yeah, which is the best platform? It's going to depend on the results that they bring and also the type of customers. So you are going to have to explore and go on that journey and see which ones work best for you and your business. So also saying best for you, but if you're going to be having a whole lot of family and friends sharing and liking your post, but not getting the right market, maybe that's not the best one for you, but rather looking at which platforms are bringing you the right people and the right inquiries. And that's probably the best platform for you. And again, being on one platform as a priority is also not a bad thing. I know these amazing scheduling programs give us the opportunity to schedule amongst many platforms, but at the same time, pick the ones that work and give you the best results. So that's me for today. I've summed that up, I think, hopefully in a bit of a nutshell to give you some inspiration on Facebook and my thoughts around it, that it should be aligned to some other activities to help those customers along the path. And then till next time, we'll be taking ourselves again on a journey with some other entrepreneurs, sharing some of their key insights to help you. And thanks for listening in on this Friendly Friday going solo, which I think has worked quite well. So as I said, perhaps it will be something I'll be kicking off to also encourage my online presence and building my credibility online. But if you like the video, go on and give us a comment and or subscribe to my page. I often bring some good marketing content to help you in your business, or register to attend my Content to Connections Masterclass. It's free. It happens once a month, where all business owners can come and just see what maybe they're missing out on. But until next week, Friday, have a super weekend and enjoy